Inclusion.
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 Inclusion. Inclusion.
Inclusion podcast by the Centre for Inclusive Leadership.
Well, hello and welcome along to Inclusion Podcast for December. I've been in a very unusual position today. First and foremost, I'm the host, so I'm excited about that. And secondly, we are coming from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, which is even more exciting. And I'm delighted to welcome Paul. Paul, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. And Nastacha, how are you?
Good. And you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. And today we're going to have a conversation about what you all have been up to in Brazil as our brand team. So I cannot wait to get into that conversation with you. It's worth knowing for those of people who are coming in to look at this podcast, we've been going through a very interesting process, and we asked the brand team to undertake a kind of what began as a sort of rebranding proposition, but ended up being a kind of rebirthing proposition, which was very interesting.
That's true.
It was very interesting. So today we're going to just have a lean in, have a think about what was in your minds, what were you thinking about, what you learned in the process, and we'll take some time to unpack that. But I'm really, really excited for you to talk to us about how you created the new image, the new look, the new feel, and really what was on your minds. But before we do that, a little surprise for you, which you wouldn't have been ready for. Well, you would because you've seen the podcast before. When we have our guests come, normally our guests tell us their inclusion stories. In fact, we build our podcast around those inclusion stories. So it would only seem right to honour the tradition by beginning, before we get into the work you do with us, to hear something about your inclusion story. So Paul, let me start with you. Tell me a little bit about your inclusion story.
For me, it starts quite a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I've kind of come from a background of sports and football, mainly soccer. And I've always kind of been in not industry, but in a environment where it's all about pressure and performance and constantly trying to prove yourself and being told you're not good enough, or like being treated as though you're not good enough.
Sure.
So that was always something that was kind of challenging for me, is that you're constantly performing, you're constantly trying to perform and prove that you can do something, because someone's always kind of critically looking at you and saying, yeah, you're not good enough, yeah, you're good enough, yeah, he's okay. So that was always a kind of that was the background I came from. So that was kind of where it started. And I guess I just always wanted to kind of belong. So that from that desire to belong in an environment, to belong in a team, belong in a area that I'm in. So that's always been with me. But so as I was going through the system of kind of sports and playing football, I was smart enough to realize that if I don't make it, I need to have something else as a backup. So not just focusing on football, I did, but I had something else just in case it didn't work out. And for me, that was, I went to university, I studied business, and I'd always kept something as a backup just in case. And so when football didn't work out for me, I went into kind of pushing into my career and went into services and customer services, because I've always had that kind of that desire to want to belong, but also that desire to help people. So those kind of things came together.
Nice.
And trying to make people feel as though they belong, but also helping them to do that and helping them to get on in their career.
Very
so
nice.
I've always had that connection.
Nice.
So that's kind of led me to the centre and the work that kind of the opportunity to work, well, yourself with my dad, so that's always a nice opportunity to work with family. And you've been speaking to me about the job for a long time and asking me to come and join, and it just I guess timing is everything. It didn't really it wasn't really on my radar for a while. I was kind of focusing on my own thing, and then things just happened and fell into place, and then it kind of just made sense for me to come in and started as facilitator, and then moved into different positions, and now moving into brand, so where I am today. So I think my story is kind of, it was always kind of going to happen, but it was just about timing, and it kind of just all landed in the same place to get into.
Really nice. And there's a big difference, isn't there, between living in an environment where you're constantly having to prove yourself versus being in an environment where you're free just to express yourself. There's a very different sense, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's what's helped. I think from a personal perspective, I hope my team would say the same, but I think I like to do that with the teams that I create. It's about, I've kind of had the freedom to go and do what I'm wanted to do, but obviously there's goals for the business, but there's that freedom to go and express yourself, like you said. And I think we've done an amazing job, and I'd hope that the team feel the same way about they've had the ability to do the same thing within their roles. And I think if I look at when I joined 4 years ago and what the business is now and where the brand is now, I think it's just unrecognizable to where it was when we started.
No, absolutely amazing. And I mean, we'll talk more about what you've done with the brand, but of course, one of your great secret weapons is not on our show today, but is, of course, our lovely Mariana, who's been a brilliant bridge as well, right? Your wife, and she's been incredible in having to pull all of this together. So it's been wonderful. So good,
definitely.
good stuff. Well, great to have you with us. It seems slightly strange to say it to my son, but great to have you. Great to have you with us.
Welcome to Rio.
Thank you very much. When this was all concocted, ironically, it was the four of us were in London, in Black Park. You remember, in the snow, walking around the park in London in the snow, and we were chatting about what could happen. So it's fantastic. It's great to see. And Nastacha, how lovely to have you with us, and what a find you've been. So I'm finding there's so much talent here in Brazil, and you are a particularly fine example of that. So it's great to have you on the team. Tell us about your story.
Thank you. My story, here in Brazil, I don't know, like in the rest of the world, but the leadership is always white male people. So it's super hard to get an important position in a company. So my inclusion story, I think, is that basically to be able to make some changes in companies, even though I'm privileged being in a white woman. But the story that I started to work at the center was funny, because I used to work in a company which was amazing. The HR manager was incredible. But one day, suddenly, the leadership changed. And the culture changed.
Overnight?
Overnight.
Wow.
Overnight.
Wow.
Basically, one person entered and started to change everything. And we felt as employees like we cannot be ourselves. And this was exactly the same time that I started to do some freelancers for the center, because I already knew Paul Rio. And
yes, for those of you watching, this might get confusing.
Yes.
There are so many Pauls in our organisation. Everybody has their own little pseudonyms. He's Paul Rio for the
Nobody's called Paul, actually.
Nobody actually is called Paul. That's a good point. He's Paul Rio for the curious reason that he lives in
Rio.
Very good. Then we have Mortz, who's called Mortz for no other reason than he's called
Paul?
Yeah, well, of course he's called Mortz. That's right. And then we have another Paul that's just arrived.
Oh, yes. I think he's actually Paul.
He's Paul.
I think for now he is.
For now he's Paul.
Yeah.
And I'm PAW.
Yeah.
So there we are. But you were saying.
No, but as I was saying, I knew Paul before, and then I started to do some freelancers, some projects about social media to change, to create actually some editorial lines for the center. And then I said to him, "Hi, Paul, can you review my resume? Because I want to work for a foreign company and I want to have everything in English, perfect, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Wow, are you looking for a new job, a new position?" And I said, "Yes, yes, I am. I totally am." And I told him all of the troubles that I was facing. And he said, "I think I might have a great position for you at my company." And I said, "Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
That would be amazing." And I said, "Okay, let's try." And I waited for him to convince the leadership at the center that you guys needed someone absolutely new and from Brazil to start the changes with our brand.
For sure. And it's so interesting because I remember that conversation, and I was thinking about the path that got us to here. And one of the things that we're very interested in within the centre is giving people space. So it's kind of an interesting place that we have because we encourage kind of self-starters. We like people to have their autonomy, have their agency, to be able to think for themselves about what they want to do. So we're not very controlling in terms of what we want people to do. That doesn't work for us. And I remember you coming to one of the SLT, our senior leadership meetings, and saying, So I'm confused. And I said, okay, what are you confused about? Well, these two brands, they make no sense to me. What are they saying? And this is kind of how so tell us how we started the story, because that's kind of that precipitated the whole conversation, right?
Yes. So we have the Center for Inclusive Leadership and also the TIC brand, the Inclusionomics company. And when I started to, dive in, I thought, wow, there is something missing here, because we need to have a brand narrative. We need to have a brand position, and we need to explain to our clients, our partners, for the audience, who we are and what we do. And I felt that everything was a bit confusing, and that we were actually doing more things that we are communicating. So I thought, maybe we need to review, our services and maybe our narrative or brand positioning. And this was the trigger to suggest that we can hire a branding consultancy here in Brazil to conduct, a diagnosis to understand us and understand what we do. And then this, I think, changed everything in the business. Not just brand identity, the colors. Because people might confuse branding with just a brand identity. But we are not talking about just that. We are talking about the whole strategy of this brand.
And I have to say, from my own personal point of view, I found that process fascinating for all sorts of reasons. One, because I've never really undertaken that sort of process in the first place, but also to realize how layered it is and how complex it is. Because to your point, it's not, we use teal and white and blue, now we don't. That wasn't what you were doing. So Paul, tell me a bit more about what happened then.
I was just going to say, because this is the second rebrand, if you like, that I've overtaken since I've come in as head of brand. And the first one was that. The first one
refresh, right?
Yeah, we changed the logo. We did a bit of research in terms of what our clients were saying about us, etc. But it wasn't as in depth as this time around. So we kind of did it first time and, like I said, refreshed the way the look and feel of the brand. But then this time it was, as you said, it started off as a rebrand process, but then it came into, we started to discover or uncover more and more that didn't really make sense, wasn't really fit for purpose anymore in terms of where the brand is and where we want to take it to. So it just felt like we needed to make those changes, and that's that work with the agency La Lima that we used in Brazil. They kind of helped us uncover that, so which was really not what we were expecting, I don't think. But the work that they did was so in depth and so insightful. It just opened up a world of, actually, no, we're here, but our goal is to get there, and we're not going to get there if we do this. We need to go in that direction. We need to see how far we can take this.
Forgive me. What did we uncover? What for you was the big revelation? What was the big reveal?
I think the big change was the positioning in the market. So I think where we were considered to be by our clients from the research they did, was that we were very much in a box in terms of what we can offer. So we were very much seen as a solution provider, hence the name Inclusive Leadership. So we were seen as, we do that. That's what we provide solutions for that. But we were actually much more than that. So we were a consultancy from beginning to end, but it wasn't from the outside. If you didn't know us, you wouldn't know that's what we did. So when they did the research and they looked at the work that we do, and they sat in the workshops and they spent time in the business and understood how we work, they saw it was so much more that we were offering. And it was like, well, this positioning doesn't make sense from what you're doing, because you're saying one thing, or you're positioned in one place, but you're actually doing something else. So you need to be over here. So that's where the work they did started to uncover that and put us in the right track as where we're trying to go. So moving from a solution provider to a consultancy, to a full-scale consultancy.
Very interesting. What would you add to that?
It's hard to say, because I was not in the company before the first change. But I would say that we have a lot of learning solutions for the market, and our clients understand us, maybe still, as a learning provider.
Yeah.
But I think we're so much more than this. We can understand the client, do the diagnosis as a consultant firm, and we can provide data, technology.
It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, and this was not in our, I don't know, purpose in the website, or we were not selling in this way. So it's talking about under a marketing perspective. The client won't never understand you if you don't tell them, like, we are a consultancy, I don't know if I can say.
Yeah.
We are a human consultancy.
Human inclusion.
Human inclusion consultancy. I will say again.
Hard to say.
Let me just say, I can't say it in Portuguese. So
Yeah.
you've done beautifully with it.
Okay, so we are a human inclusion consultancy. If we don't say that, it's impossible for them to get it, or,
Yeah, I agree completely.
or imagine or guess it, you know.
But I think that, Paul,
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's a really important point, because as well, another one of the things that were not uncovered, but one of the things the challenges that we posed to Lalima was to separate ourselves from the rest of the market. So the market is very noisy. There's a lot of competitors in the market at the moment that are doing the same thing that we're doing, or are making a lot of noise. And they're not necessarily doing what we're doing, but they're specializing in one aspect of it. But they are making a lot of noise, and they're being successful.
Yeah, very much so.
So for us, we didn't want to be another one of those, because we've got the experience. We've always been, as we like to say, one step ahead of the curve. We've always been seen as or see ourselves as the disruptors. We want to kind of challenge the way people think about this conversation. So we wanted to separate ourselves even more from that, because not just become a consultancy, but become a human inclusion consultancy, which is not any language that anybody's using in the industry at the moment. And we believe that's the future, because it's not about, we would define that, because it's a new term. So human inclusion, you might be thinking, what does that mean? I know what inclusion means, I know what a human is, but what does it mean together? And we would say it's about compassionate efficiency. So that's
exactly.
about how do you look after, take care of your people within the organization to create an environment where they feel safe, where they feel valued, where they feel trusted. But at the same time, understanding that you still need to make money as a business, you still need to hit the bottom line. So you still got to try and do it in a way that impacts the profit and loss account, impacts the profit of the organization, but not at the expense of your employees, and not just keep churning out and bringing more people in.
But that's a huge point. Sorry, so did you want to finish the point?
No, that was it.
Forgive me, because I think that's a huge point, because the thing about the human inclusion notion that we have is it's this very important pivot that moves you from thinking about humans as being resources and time-bound resources, expendable resources, however you want to describe it, to thinking about how do we resource humans? What do you need to do to resource humans? And I think that conversation is very much of its time, because in an environment now where we're seeing the advance, the absolutely unfettered advance of AI and automation and so forth, it's really important to be able to preserve and promote what it means to be human. So for me, this is a really interesting space. And I think that I was writing on an article over the weekend, and I was saying in the article that I think a human inclusion organization is one that's characterized by growing it grows its P&L by growing its people. And if the bigger I can grow my people, then by definition, the bigger the P&L will grow at the same time. And I think this is important, because to me, what was interesting when you came back with your findings and we had the conversation with the brand team, what struck me and what I took to the board and said, this is a serious proposition, this is a big shift, was because I think when we came to the market, we wanted to your point, Paul, we wanted to differentiate ourselves. So we said the market when we started was very much a diversity management market. There was a lot of people that were working in the diversity space doing amazing work, absolutely amazing work, very focused on aspect, race or gender, all sorts of different things, doing tremendous work. But what we wanted to say was, we were saying, but diversity without inclusion doesn't work. And we knew that sort of 12 years ago. And now as we're watching the market mature, and you've now seen new phrases come into the market, people are talking about not just diversity and inclusion, but they're talking about diversity, equity and inclusion. They're talking about diversity, equity and belonging. The conversation is maturing, which is amazing. But to your disruption point, Paul, I think it now needs to be pushed a little bit further. And so this notion, I think, of human inclusion elevates that conversation a bit further on, particularly in the context of the rise and the advance of AI. I think that's really important. So for me, what was so interesting was when you presented to us your thoughts and your disruptive conversation about I don't get these two brands. I think for me, what was interesting was to say, we're going to make a pivot from being a leadership business. And I've had clients ask me so many times, so do you deal with the individual contributors as well? I go, yeah. And they go, oh, I thought you only dealt with leaders. No, we deal with everybody. To actually saying, actually, no, we have a much more holistic way of thinking about it. And what your work prompted was the creation of our new consulting model, right? So, which is super exciting. So now we have this end-to-end model that we call Adopt, which I'm very excited about. But now I know there's a few things we can't talk about. We can't talk about the new name because you've kind of rebirthed the business, right? Can't say that yet. That's coming about this. When will people know about the new name? Come on, this is like the worst thing in the world.
Next year.
Early next year. Okay.
Q1.
So we have a new name. We have a whole new brand, look, feel, proposition. You have a brand new story, narrative. Positioning in the market. We have this lovely... Can we talk about Adopt? Are you able to talk about that or no?
Yeah. I think we can talk about the Adopt model and also about our 3 new verticals.
So talk to me about the 3 verticals. Tell me about this.
So the 3 new verticals actually were things that we used to do, but not in a clear way. That's what's interesting, isn't it? Because that, I think, is the thing. It's almost like you've been able to go into this room. It's like having all these puzzle pieces on the floor, and you've gone, oh, what do these do? And you turn them all the right way up, and you've actually said, you do 3 things. You do this, you do this, you do this. Exactly. Thanks to Lalima.
Thank you, Lalima. I would like to take credit for that, but Lalima was mostly...
They did very well with that. Yeah, they did. And it's funny because I didn't necessarily always understand their process because they were asking things at the beginning that I was thinking, what? But actually, when I saw the whole thing come together, it was very interesting.
They were disrupting us.
They were very disruptive, actually. They were
disrupting
interesting.
us in a positive way, right?
But we ended up with the idea of transition.
So we've got and it'd be good to, there's 3 kind of bits that come together from that. So we created a methodology, which is the 3-step methodology, which is looking at translating, transitioning, and transforming. And
I like those. I'm good with 3-step rhythms. That's absolutely fine.
That is based on, they mapped that against our Adopt model. And that literally helped us create the services, which are the 3 new verticals. And also it encompasses everything that we do in the new consulting model.
Can you tell me about the verticals?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So again, this is based off of the methodology and the Adopt model. So there's 3. So there is strategy, learning solutions, and
basically is analytics.
Analytics is right. I would say data, but it's
strategy.
Not data. So analytics. Analytics, strategy, and learning solutions.
Nice, really, really nice.
So that is based on our 5-step, or not 5-step, but our 5-point Adopt model.
And what was really nice about that is that's been one of the things that you were struggling with, Nastacha, at the beginning was how we incorporate the whole the analytics piece, right? Because we had a kind of we had an analytics business that was sort of orbiting what we were doing, but you wanted to bring it to be part of the same story, didn't you? Which is, I think, very interesting. So now we have within our Adopt model. So for those of you who are interested in the acronyms, because we're obsessed about acronyms, the A is about ambition, right? So this is your point about the strategy. So with the ambition with a client, we begin with a conversation about trying to understand what is the client's aspiration? What are they really looking to do? And our view is we kind of have this idea of being able to say, by working with us and working with our senior teams, they'll be able to perhaps elevate even your idea of what's achievable with inclusion, which I think is quite exciting. And then that creates us the opportunity to say, okay, this is where the client really wants to go. And then we use the D, which is around the data. So we start thinking about what's the qualitative, what's the quantitative story around the data. And we've got a particular tool where we can measure, which is fascinating. And then the O is about openness and organizational readiness. Where's the organization within its maturity and its acceptance of this kind of conversation? Because I think one of the other things that came from the research work was the extent to which inclusion, the way we offer it, is a cultural change process, right? And it's a kind of multi-year journey. And then the P is about people development, and then the T is about tracking, monitoring, and improving. So it's very exciting, I think, to be able to have an actual full loop where we can literally do an end-to-end solution, because that was, I think, one of our frustrations, that we were seeing clients bringing us in to do the P and we would kind of almost do the A at risk, right? And then we would not really sort of sometimes do the D and sometimes do some O, but actually the idea that we can package it together within these three verticals, I'm really excited about. So that has been amazing. So tell me a little bit about the future. If you think you can gaze into the future a little bit, what do you see?
I think for the immediate future, we're interested in the location that we're in now. So in South America, in Brazil.
Yeah, this is an exciting development, right?
Yeah, I think we're trying to create some noise in a good way here. So we've got some potential to start working here, and that's I guess our immediate future goal. That's why we've got a team here in Brazil. Not the reason why I moved here, but one of the reasons that we hired all of the marketing team, all the brand team in Brazil,
they're all based here.
Is because of that. Because thinking forward, this is what we want to. This is the next market we want to try and enter. So that's the immediate goal for us, and I think we've got some interesting opportunities lined up. So it looks like that could be sooner rather than later. But it's about, as well for us, I think, understanding exactly what the market is here, because it's very different to Europe and very different to the Americas. So understanding what the conversation is, what the inclusion conversation is, and making sure that we are providing a solution for the market, not just offering what we already have.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, some of our biggest clients are already here anyway, right? Because we've got global clients, and a lot of them are here. So actually coming to support this market is important for us. And part of the reason why I'm in Rio right now, apart from to see you and to see Marianne and to meet my granddaughter, and to do this podcast, is to meet with some clients. So I'm very excited about the schedule. We've got clients that we're meeting. But I think there is a huge opportunity because, and we know very much that the model that we use in the UK will need a different emphasis. So when we talk about our model in the UK, we talk about this join, thrive, stay model. I think for the Brazilian market particularly, we know there's a really important conversation about opening up the market, particularly in terms of some of those real diversity issues that you might face into around, discrimination and race and other. Well, you made the point earlier on, right? You positioned it really interestingly about being a white woman who suffers that within corporates. Well, what would be your story if you were a black woman?
Yeah. Impossible.
Right. So
here in Brazil is awful, and I think it's super important for us to have Brazilian people in our team to give our perspective to the company to enter in this market in a better way, in the best way. Of course, I think we should study Brazil and Latin America and our issues, but having people from here, it's super important to deliver the best service.
I agree.
Because I work. Sorry.
No, go.
Also, the language, right? So that's an obvious issue.
It's a good point.
It's actually exclusive to deliver it in English, right? So you've got to Nastacha's point. It's about having local people that native that can speak the language to deliver, because it's difficult, complex subjects we're talking about, and it's even harder to expect people to understand it in a native. It's not their native language, right? So that's a big thing as well, to having native speakers that can deliver the workshops, that can deliver the content to people.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I've been fascinated by how you've been able to translate some of the concepts that we offer you. I mean, like the work that Carol does, for example, with the designs that she creates. I just give her really abstract statements, and she comes about these incredible images. How did you get that? Where did you get that from? Which is very exciting. But I think the notion for us of being able to say, I almost kind of feel like if we can moderate or adapt our lyrics, if you will, and get you to put the music to them, right? Then I think we could have something very interesting, because there is no doubt that basic idea that we have as an organization, which says, how do you resource humans? The first thing we've got to help people do is understand what it is to be human. Yeah. And then there's a whole nother conversation we've got to have around taking talent that's not represented in this marketplace and getting it ready for the market. But also there's another conversation which says we've got to go to the market and get it ready for the talent. So we've actually there's a lot of work to do here, but I think it could be super, super exciting. So I'm really pleased about that.
We already have a version of the website in Portuguese as well.
So there you are. There you are. Well, that's
already ready.
You're already ready to press play. And just give me one last question for you. Cast forward, maybe, I don't know, you're talking about the immediate future. What do you see in 5 years out from here?
I mean, I already consider us to be the best in the space, but for everybody else to see that. And I think nice. The work that we're doing this year, the work we've done with the Rebrand, what we're doing in PR over you'll see in the next couple of months, I think that's really going to put us in a position where we are considered to be the reference point. When you think about D&I, you think about us, and that's the long-term goal, is to be not just in Europe, not just in the UK, but globally, to be the point of reference when you think about D&I.
Nastacha?
I would say the same. I would love to be recognized. Like tell my family I work for this company, and they could recognize this and say and spread the word. I think we have the services. I think we have the right narrative for the future. And when you guys see the new brand, which is an amazing work from Forest Design, which is one of the best design studios in Brazil.
They're incredible.
It's based in São Paulo. The work that they've done, it's amazing. It's incredible. So I'm so proud to launch this, and I can wait to see the response of the market. And I think we can have much more than we have now in just Europe. We can go to South America, and why not Asia?
Fantastic.
I think we are, one of the biggest issues I think we have is that people that don't know us, I'm going to say it, we're almost the best kept secret. It's like a lot of our work is referrals.
Yeah, it's all pretty much all referrals.
Yeah, people that know us and work with us, love us and tell everybody about it.
Yeah,
but that's just a few people. And so we need to try and build that awareness so that people know who we are. Because once they start working with us, they don't look anywhere else.
Well, that's
just being honest. So I think
true.
we've got to. That's our challenge as the brand team is how do we build that awareness so people know who we are.
Really good.
And that's our goal for the next few years.
So if I may just add my 5-year aspiration.
To live in Brazil.
That would be good. My 5-year aspiration.
We should have an office here as well.
Yeah, we definitely should have a full-time office here. My 5-year aspiration would be in 5 years' time that we've done the kind of all the knowledge transfer we need to do, that I can then go into semi-retirement and Paul could be the boss. And that's it.
Yes.
We all live happily ever after. What a joy to have you both with us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the work that you've done. I mean, it's just incredible. Between you all and the whole team here in Brazil, you've absolutely transformed us. Even in this first little kind of bit of airbrushing you did for us, that was exciting. And that was such a leap. We were smiling, looking at the old branding over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
But folks, when you see what these beautiful people who come up with for our new brand, I nearly said the name. When you
almost.
We're going to delete it. So thank you very much. I can say, go on, Paul.
Yeah, just keep an eye on our socials.
Yes.
We'll be sharing some teasers over the next few weeks or two before the launch. So you'll be seeing some stuff coming out, and the launch will be aiming for Q1, so end of Q1.
End of Q1. All right. And here's a really bad ending. So forgive my grammar. Muito obrigada.
Eu que agradeço.
De nada.
Yeah. Perfect.